Welcome to the Happiness-Matters podcast, where we'll explore happiness at work and show you how to coach yourself to be happier there and more successful too, no matter what.
Welcome to the second episode of our Self-SmiZing Coaching. I'm Julia Seal, and today we'll continue with the coaching tool called Mirror Work that I introduced last week. In this session, we'll explore what you discovered from using this coaching tool and how you can apply it to your happiness and success at work. If you remember, we're looking at coaching as transformation and using our insight sessions on smiling, smizing, and laughter to assist us in narrowing in on your coaching topic, all part of our Series 1 self-coaching journey, defining, assessing, and visioning. As I said last week, to support your discoveries over the next few sessions, I'm offering you some once-off coaching sessions where we can walk through what you discover through using these coaching tools. You'll find all the details on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. In addition, next week's episode is going to be dedicated to questions and queries you have on these first Insight bonus episodes, from the yellow smiley face, emojis and emoticons, to the human smile, laughter, and now these 2 coaching episodes on self-smizing. If you are new to this work today, it might seem a bit disjointed as we're continuing a conversation we started last week. Hang in there though, I'm sure you'll find today interesting, and you can go back to episode 1.12 afterwards. You can find the detailed Coaching as Transformation material in episodes 1.5 and 1.6, both about your future self journey. When I introduced mirror work to you last week, I described how it was used by Socrates to teach the ancient Greek saying, "Know thyself," and by Louise Hay in her popular book, You Can Heal Your Life. Socrates used the mirror as an active tool of transformation, and we can use it today in the same way to increase your awareness of what you're thinking and feeling about yourself. The mirror reflects back to you these feelings and thoughts, and in doing so, shows you what thoughts you might want to change, the thoughts that are not serving you in your happiness and success. Let's look at some other tales of mirror work. We're actually swamped with stories about mirror work in Western culture. We've been fascinated by them because of our belief that they show us something more than just our reflection. Mirrors are seen as the gateway between this world and other realms or other levels of our consciousness. In the Greek myth of Narcissus, a beautiful man wastes away, gazing at himself, admiring his reflection in the water. Narcissus, as I'm sure you're aware, is the origin of our modern word narcissism, which means a fixation with oneself and one's physical appearance. This is also the origin of the flower named Narcissus. This is the daffodil family, those beautiful spring flowers that come up as the snow is melting across Europe. They're named after the young Greek who fell in love with himself staring into water, numb to the reality around him, also linked to the Greek word intoxicated, narcotic. In the 1812 Brothers Grimm fairy tale of Snow White, the evil queen asks, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" I've just finished watching the TV series Grimm on Netflix. If you haven't watched it, it's a series that uses Grimm's fairy stories as inspiration. At the end, there's a terrifying mirror, one that you can only step through with the blood of a hexen beast, with evil incarnate on the other side. So scary, I could only watch the final episodes in daylight. In 1890, Oscar Wilde's novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray, a portrait serves as a magical mirror that reflects the true face of the perpetually young character, as well as the effect on his soul of each of his sinful acts. We meet Lewis Carroll's Alice again. This time, she's stepping through the looking glass to find that just like a reflection, everything is reversed, including logic. Running helps you remain stationary. Walking away from something brings you towards it, where chessmen, nursery rhyme characters, and the Jabberwocky live. These are just some of the tales of mirrors and what they might do for us. If you have mirror tales from your family or your home country, why not share them with me on our Facebook page, Happiness-Matters.coach. I'd love to expand this topic with examples from across the world. So let's get stuck into the insights from the coaching tool Mirror Work and all the thoughts you had about yourself, about this coaching work, and about me as your coach. Perhaps you noticed discomfort or embarrassment, perhaps irritation or disinterest. I want to focus in on the thoughts and feelings you had about yourself specifically. All the thoughts that actually make up your relationship with yourself. Now, your relationship with yourself is made up of 4 types of thoughts. Thoughts about you, thoughts about your actions, thoughts about your past, and thoughts about your future. What we've been doing in our coaching so far in Series 1 is unpacking all the thoughts and feelings you have about your happiness and success at work and how you want to define it going forward. Now we're going to focus on the coaching as transformation topic, mainly the thoughts and feelings you have about yourself, this relationship with yourself. So yes, through this mirror tool, we want to look at all the thoughts about you, your actions, your past, and your future. These thoughts run through our heads as an internal monologue. We often refer to this monologue as self-talk or inner speech, and it's your inner voice that provides a running verbal commentary on your life, also called our stream of consciousness. It's this stream of consciousness that we're examining with this mirror work coaching tool. So I'm not suggesting that you'll find your soul by looking in the mirror like Dorian Gray, or that there's something on the other side like Alice. But what you might have discovered is that this mirror work can be uncomfortable if you do it, or that you've resisted doing it since last week, as you don't believe me or it sounds off-putting. What this coaching tool will do is reveal all the thoughts you have about yourself, all the thoughts you have in relationship to yourself. These thoughts will be even easier to notice, to capture when you try smiling or smizing, that authentic, genuine Duchenne smile with both your mouth and your eyes, and when you're laughing into the mirror. In uncovering all these thoughts, you might discover where your work of your coaching as transformation might lie. It might show you where the greatest difference to your happiness and success at work needs to be done. This mirror work can reveal your most terrible self-judgments and even your biggest fears. If you feel awkward, unsettled, embarrassed, emotional, or other feelings like self-criticism or even self-loathing, then you are on the right track to working with yourself at this level. You are meeting the real relationship that you have with yourself. All the thoughts you have about yourself in the world, those 4 types of thoughts that make up the relationship you have with yourself. And you might be meeting your inner self-critic. Mirror work exposes our inner critic in plain daylight. Suddenly, everything we feel about ourselves that we might not be aware of comes to the surface. And if you haven't learned to like yourself, you might even believe all the nastiness whispered by your inner critic. So what is this inner critic? You might have heard about it in popular psychology. Firstly, it's part of your inner monologue, the stream of thoughts in your head. It's part of your internal discourse by which you process information and other mental activities, such as your feelings. Most of the time, your inner speech is very useful to you. It helps you with self-regulation, such as planning and problem-solving. It helps you with self-reflection, and it helps you with critical thinking, such as evaluating. However, the inner critic is the less helpful aspect of this inner speech. This is inner critical dialogue or negative self-talk. That is the term used in psychotherapy to refer to a subpersonality or thread of thoughts that judge and demean the person who's thinking them, and that would be you or me. Robert Firestone is an American psychoanalyst who has written much about the inner self-critic and how to work with it through various therapies. He says, every person is divided. Part of us is goal-directed and self-possessed, while another part is self-critical, self-denying, and even self-destructive. This anti-self perpetuates a negative thought process, the critical inner voice. It's usually experienced as an inner voice attacking you, saying things like, you're worthless, a failure, unlovable, bad, wrong, inadequate, guilty, worthless. Or, you're under too much pressure, you'll never get anything done, no one even notices you, you should just give up. Many people have a really debilitating inner critic, and these kind of thoughts will easily lead to shame, low self-esteem, self-doubt, and even depression. It's been given many labels, including the perfectionist, the inner controller, the guilt tripper, the destroyer, and the underminer. One of the most common I hear from my clients is what's known as the imposter syndrome, where you doubt your accomplishments, no matter how great they are, and you fear being exposed as a fraud. Have you got one of these inner critics living in your head? Do you have a stream of thoughts like this? And how is your inner critic showing up for you at work? How is it getting in the way of your happiness? Through using this coaching tool and practicing smizing at yourself, you might have uncovered some of what this inner critic is saying. You'll be getting a sense of the nature of your thoughts, all those thoughts that make up your relationship with yourself. And it's at this point you might want to rethink or refine your goal of coaching when I say happy and successful at work, no matter what. Your work might be this inner critic. It may be why you cannot spontaneously smile and laugh and make use of the contagious nature of happiness that we discussed in episodes 1.10 and 1.11. What you don't have to do is live with this inner critic. Addressing this is what you can make your transformation coaching topic. Here's a fascinating insight about the inner self-critic. Sharon Salzberg, North American meditation teacher, asked the Dalai Lama in 1990, "What do you think about self-hatred?" She explains, "He looked at me, seeming somewhat confused, and asked in response, 'What's that?' When I explained to him what I meant by the term, talking about the cycle of self-judgment, guilt, unproductive thought patterns, he asked me, 'How could you think of yourself that way?' And then spent the rest of the conference finding out more about this inner critic. In other words, she says, he simply didn't get the fact that many of us are overcome with fundamental feelings of negativity and inadequacy. So while it's common to many of us today, this negative way of relating to ourselves, this self-criticism, seems to be relatively absent among Tibetan Buddhists. Looking at the possibility of not laboring under your inner self-critic from Robert Firestone's point of view is his description of the qualities of a mentally healthy person. It's too long to read out here, but I will put the link in the show notes for you. Here's an outline. A person who has a strong sense of themselves, a person who can deal with feelings and who is non-defensive, a person who has a strong sense of values, and these values are inner directed rather than outer directed. A person who is neither defiant nor submissive, but independent. A person who is not suspicious or distrustful of other people, but instead open to people and alive to life. So many people are dead to life, so defended that they lose their vitality. He goes on, but all of this depends on how much a person is willing to struggle, because within the defensive apparatus, many of these things are limited or blunted or destroyed. But how far are they willing to go? How much are they going to rely on character defenses? How much courage do they have to challenge these defenses and develop themselves? So how much courage do we have? Stanford University psychologist Carroll, who we met last week, has a view on this from her work on the growth mindset. To remain in a growth zone, we must identify and work with our own fixed mindset triggers. Many managers and executives have benefited from learning to recognize when their fixed mindset persona shows up and what it says to make them feel threatened or defensive. And most importantly, over time they have learned to talk back to it, persuading it to collaborate with them as they pursue challenging goals. What we can see from these three experts, the Dalai Lama, Robert Firestone, and Carroll Dweck, is that this opportunity of a relationship with yourself, where your inner critic has dissolved, or is at least subdued and manageable, is available to you through our coaching together. There really is no better time to do this work together. So we've taken the last 4 episodes and what they've raised for us in the context of Series 1, defining, assessing, and visioning your happiness coaching journey. We've revisited our future vision from the perspective of smiling and laughter, and we've now taken this a step further by looking at how your inner self-talk might be your greatest obstacle to your happiness and success at work. This is Coaching as Transformation, where we ensure that your definition of happiness is not so simple as a new coffee machine, a salary increase, or a wish that your unfriendly colleague finds another job. On these topics, though, I promise we'll look into these too on the podcast. There's too much unhappiness at work caused by these things that we cannot not talk about them. We'll get there once we spend some time exploring our inner self-critic, our unhappiness, and the feelings that go with these. For next week, please send your questions to me on our website Happiness-Matters.coach /Ask Julia. We're going to take a look at what you need clarified or expanded on from our episodes on the yellow smiley face through to today's session, Self-SmiZing. Once we're done with this, I'm going to coach you through some of your unhappiness, especially if this episode has raised concerns for you. We're looking at unhappy as the story of happy. It's been a great session today. I trust you found it useful and can apply the insights and the coaching to your life this week. Bye for now. It's spring and whale season here in the Cape, and I'm off for a coastal drive to see if I can spot some.
Thanks for joining us on this Happiness Matters podcast. Do join us again here next week on Tuesday. You can subscribe to this series at Apple Podcasts on iTunes, or you can sign up for it on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. That's Happiness-Matters.coach. COACH. Also, you can join our conversation on Facebook by following us there. Our Facebook page is also Happiness-Matters.coach.